Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. We've got a new case from Montech. Well, it's kind of a new case. It's a reimagining of the classic Montech Sky 2 called the Montech Sky 2 GX. Basically what Montech decided to do is listen to the feedback from everybody and rebuild this case in a way that makes it a lot more attractive with a lot of cool new additions. So let's do our usual thing. Let's rip it apart, show you how it ticks, test the thermals, do a build, and all that jazz. Let's do a case review thing.
This video is brought to you by VIPSCDKey.com. Have you ever installed Windows 11 only to see the watermark of death? You don't need to fork out a couple of $100s for a key. You can grab one from today's video sponsor, from VIPSCDKey.com for 1/10 of the price. You can use our code GEAR to get 30% off for this month only. How good is that? That takes that already cheap Windows 11 key and makes it even cheaper. It's easy as placing your order. Bingo bango. You've got your new key on your orders page. You chuck that key into the activation screen and you're good to go. No more watermark of death. Use code GEAR to get 30% off for this month only. Link in the description. On with the video. Back to you, Nick.
All right, you know what time it is, ladies and gents. It's panel removal time. The Sky 2 GX has a little handle here. It's got some rubber on the inlay, which is quite nice. And basically you just put some fingers in there, pull the panel towards you, and then lift it off the hinges and out of the way. And as you can see with the TG, it's not really tinted at all. And there's a Claire in the background somewhere. I don't know, she's probably trying to wave. I don't know, maybe you can see her. I don't know. On the back side of the case, there are 2 captive thumb screws and you can remove them. They're very loose, which is nice. And we can just slide that back and away from the case. And one thing I just wanted to mention as well, and this is why we say such good things about Montech cases all the time. Check this out, right? This is such a tiny detail, but they even have a plastic washer between the metal and the case so it doesn't scratch. I don't know, but that plastic washer seems a bit unnecessary, but you know, you don't scratch your panel when you're doing the tightening of all the screws. To remove the front panel, it's magnetic. It's really easy. You just put your fingers at the bottom of the panel and lift it away from the case. To remove the top panel, there's a single captive thumb screw, and basically you just loosen that screw off and then you slide the panel away from the case. Another unnecessary plastic washer. You don't notice this stuff when you build, but I notice these things because I look at all these things all the time. There's one more panel to remove and it's the bottom of the PSU shroud. There's 2 screws on the back of the case and essentially we just loosen these 2 screws up and then we can slide this panel back and away from the case, giving us access to this, which if I'm being honest, I think this should be a bit more open. That's one of the first comments I'll make. That should be way more open. I might just Dremel that out just for fun. The other thing with this side panel is it's removable, but you don't necessarily need to remove it when you're building with it. So guess what, ladies and gents? I'm whizzing it back up and chucking it back in, and I don't want to lose the screws for it. You know, that's how it goes around here. As for dust filters, there's a single dust filter on the side panel that has vents as well for intake. And this is what I mentioned when we did the Antec C5 video the other day, is they should have done something similar with the Antec C5. For power supply length, you're looking at 210 millimeters. Pretty standard with the case like this. However, the hard disk cage at the front of the case can be removed and then you've got infinite PSU length. Speaking of the hard drive bay, you can do 2 3.5-inch spinning rust drives in the case or 2 2.5-inch drives in this space here. You can do 2 more 2.5-inch drives on the back of the motherboard tray with these captive thumb screws that hold these drive sleds into place. And lastly, part of the magic with this new case from Montech, you can do 2 more 2.5-inch drives on this panel here. But check this out. This is what makes it special. You can see this little doohickey right here. This is a latching mechanism because if you read closely, it says open and close. What that means is we can switch it to open and then we can pull the panel out and away from the case. We have 2 additional fan mounting locations, much like the original Sky 2. The GX is essentially the same chassis or a similar chassis that's been upgraded. That means if you wanted to, you could remove that panel and have additional fans for intake, because on the side of the Sky 2 GX, you can install up to 2 120mm fans here. I would not recommend trying to put a radiator in here because it won't fit, because the hole is quite literally just big enough for fans, no end tanks of a radiator. Up top, we can do 3 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans, as well as for radiator support, we can do a 360mm radiator or up to a 280mm radiator. At the front, you can see that we've got 3 of these pre-installed Montech AX140 fans, which means we can do 3 140mm fans up the front, or for radiator support, we can do up to a 360mm liquid cooler or a 280mm radiator. Now, some would debate, oh, you know, like you can do 3 140s, why can't you do a 420mm rad? Well, basically because there's no room for the end tanks of a radiator like that. But, you know, this is more than adequate, guys. And on the bottom, we can do 2 more 120mm fans. And lastly, on the rear, we can do a single 120mm fan. Let's do some maths here. I want to show you guys how many fans this case can take. Count with me, everybody all together now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fans, yeah. Seriously though, 11 fans in a mid-tower is a little bit insane, but you know, it is what it is. 11 fans. This case is really not that big either. 11 fans, get that through your head. 11 fans. We learned something today. We can count from 1 to 11. As for motherboards, the Sky 2GX gets a little bit more interesting. Now remember, this is a mid-tower case and it does something very interesting. So first of all, ITX motherboard support, that's a no-brainer, those 4 screw holes here. But you will notice that with this in place, it essentially makes the entire motherboard tray flat, which means you have extra mounting holes here for big ass motherboards. And I'm not just talking EATX, because EATX isn't a real standard, it's a fake thing. I'm talking about SSI EEB. So you could put a motherboard in here, like a server motherboard, that is the whole size of the case, and then you still have grommets to pass the cables through. That is really, really nice. And actually, it's something I want to comment on, and I hope Leon Lee maybe watches this video. With the LANcool 3, which is a bigger case than this that I was using for my workstation for a long time, I had to make like a custom way to do this with an EEB board. Why not just do this? Like, this is very clever. And again, if you want to pull this out, you just unlatch it, rip it out, put fans there if you want, and then you still have the cable grommets for regular size motherboards anyway. As for air cooler support, you've got a maximum supported height of 168 mils. Yeah. For GPU support, the maximum supported length is 400 millimeters, and this big old chunky gigabyte card fits in here easily. As well as that, this case does support vertical GPU brackets, and you can do vertical GPUs if you like as well, because there's no bracing on the rear for the PCIe cutouts. For case wiring, we've got our front panel audio cable. There's the cable for your lights and all your switches to turn on your computer and to let you know it's on. There's our USB Type-C cable, which is right next to our USB Type-A cable. Type-A cable. On the top panel, we've got a power button, a drive activity light, and a power light. We've got a reset button. There's also a USB Type-A port, headphone jack, microphone jack, another USB Type-A port, and a USB Type-C port. See, Type-C is always next to Type-A. There is this included PWM fan hub, as well as a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB hub. There is no controller built in here. This is basically just a pass-through device because you need to use motherboard pass-through and a PWM cable to control the fan speed for this hub and for the lighting. But there's also a supplemental SATA power cable as well to pump some extra juice into this hub. But yeah, this is pretty nice to have. As you can see here, there's 3 addressable RGB connections that are populated by the 3 fans that are already installed in the case. And then you've got room for 3 more. And the same can be said for the PWM on this hub as well. For cable management, you can see that there's some cable grommets along the edge here for passing things like your USB Type-C cable, your USB Type-A cable, 24-pin power and all that. So there's these nice grommets. There's also, as mentioned, grommets on this removable panel here, which will allow you to pass cables through for much bigger boards. So like the CEB and EB boards if you decide to do that. And there's also some extra cutouts for fans and EPS power cables along the top here. That's everything I think you need to know about the Sky 2 GX for now. It's a pretty interesting reimagining of a classic case. Well, classic as far as Montech goes, because they haven't been around that long. But let's do a build, test the thermals, and then I'll let you guys know what I think of this new case. Well, kind of new case. Let's do a build thing. Okay, let's take a look at the thermals. What you're seeing on your screen right now is the thermals for the Montech Sky 2 GX are very, very good. No surprises here really when you take a look at the design for this case, especially with the layout that you saw us building with. We've got these three massive 140mm fans up the front. It's an open mesh front and it's just pumping a whole lot of air into a 360mm cooler. And I mean, what more can I say? Like, would be very surprising if the thermals were terrible in any aspect here, because it is realistically a very open case. So the thermals are fine. I really don't have much to say about this because you knew how this was going to be from the jump. But if you're interested in any of the hardware used in this PC, there's a PCPartPicker list down below, and there's a little card thing that pops up through that part of the video with all the names of all the parts. Like I put the labels there and the labels on the parts and the labels are labeled and the parts are labeled, right? Makes sense. You get it. You understand. But what do I think about the Montech Sky 2 GX? Well, I've got a phrase that I wrote down in my iPhone. Yes, I also have an iPhone, about how I felt about this case when I was reviewing it and doing all the testing. It was quite simply perfectly balanced. This case is the perfect balance of design, airflow, and price, which we'll get to in a moment. The build quality of the Sky 2 GX is classic Montech. It's really, really good for the price. Sometimes with Montech cases, I have to think to myself, how are they possibly making cases of quality like this for such a small amount of money? It's insane to me. You may or may not know this, but I think I mentioned it earlier in the video. This is kind of a replacement or a reiteration of the classic Sky 2, and I think they've done a pretty good job here. The main differences with this compared to the original is it's now got a mesh front. There's no more glass up front, which may be a bit of a letdown for some people who like that, let's call it the fish tank-esque design, but personally, I prefer cases with mesh fronts for a couple reasons. First of all, much better airflow, and I think they look better. I don't like the reflective glass being at the front of a case. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that's just something I prefer. And I know a lot of you guys out there are like that too. You don't want to sacrifice any airflow and you want it to look good at the same time. That being said, with the GX variant, well, with this new version anyway, it still retains those side intake fan mounts that we had in the original Sky 2. So there is that too. But overall, I think Montech's done it again. This case is perfectly balanced. It's perfectly balanced in most aspects, mainly the price, the build quality, and the thermal performance. It is really a good case. So once again, good work, Montech. I'm not sure how you keep doing it, but actually, no, I know how they're doing it. They're actually listening to the feedback they're getting. It's unbelievable that a company actually uses their ears and listens to people, right? But, you know, Montech seems to have figured that out. Right, here's the best thing about the Sky 2 GX. It's the price. And this is Montech's whole thing. If you're interested in this case, the black version that we showed through the review section is $89 US, and the white version is $95 US. And I will say this again, and something I keep telling people, when you buy cases, a lot of the time, and even based on a few of the polls that we've done on YouTube communities over the last little while, have said that people prefer getting fans with their cases. We thought it was the other way around, but you know, we're wrong. And when you buy a case like this, you get 3 included 140mm fans, and these fans perform quite well. You also get that PWM and RGB hub. So for, let's say you get the black version for $85 US, something like this is a no-brainer. Not only that, the motherboard support in this case is absurd. Basically, any motherboard that you can buy will fit in this case, and the case is not that big. So once again, Montech is kind of killing it on all fronts. They're thinking about people like me who use stupid motherboards for some builds. I don't have any on hand at the moment. I would have used one if I had one. They're thinking about people who want to save some cash, and they're making it look good. So yeah, definitely a nice case. I think Montech's done it again. Okay, if you're sick of hearing me talk, you can maybe listen to some of the music in our videos, because you're going to be listening to me again, because I make all the music, and if you want to listen to it, click the join button down there down below. And I'm out of here, ladies and gents. I'm going to go and hunt down the cat. I've got cat treats all over my table here. She was supposed to join us. That's not the secret. We usually don't give her cat treats, but she'll just jump up on her own. But you know, I really wanted to force her to be up here, but she ain't having it. She's a cat. She does whatever the hell she wants. And I'm going to do whatever I want and drink my coffee out of my Rode mug. Not sponsored. But we do have a Rode discount code if you guys want to use it, I guess. It's actually not sponsored at all, but we do have one, don't we? We do. Yeah. I'll post that if you guys are into like music production, or like you have a podcast or something and you want to buy some gear and you want to support gear seekers and you want to get it from Rode, we have a code. Ha! We got the Rode code. I think it's like 30% off at the moment.
I need to check that.
Not sponsored, but we do have a code. I keep saying it. Oh, if you're still watching this part of the video, I don't know why. I guess I'm just trying to see how long I can make the video go for without people clicking off, because I might do something ridiculous. Like, you don't know if I'm going to do something crazy. You just don't know. Anything could happen. I actually had the thought then to pour the rest of the coffee over my head. Because that would have been crazy, but I probably would have fucked up some gear, like the mic and the Rode mic that I'm using. It's actually not a Rode mic. It is, but only half of it. Anyway, I'm going. Why am I still here? Enjoy the Sky 2 GX. And yeah, I mean, I'm just out of frame.